My sister called my adopted daughter a mistake and harassed her while expecting me to pay for her wedding, but I cut her out of my life and showed her who the real mistake was. Hey guys, I created a throwaway account just for this. I have a main account I use for my art. I don't really know how to post in this sub, so please excuse any errors. I also think it's important to give a content warning as there's violence and death involved, and I know from personal experience that it can be triggering. So I'm 32 years old. My name is Diane. I'm the eldest of 5 siblings, and I've taken on the role of family caregiver for as long as I can remember. I helped our parents until their passing, and it's honestly exhausting. Dad died of brain cancer 3 years ago, and it was heartbreaking to watch him deteriorate over time. Mom passed away peacefully overnight this year after a long and hard battle with breast cancer. As the eldest, I simply became the de facto mother. I don't mind it. I love my siblings, and it's a bit of my nature to be the older sister to both friends and family. I'm like the group's confidant, and I also help my family financially. It doesn't bother me as I work in tech, have a side art project, and inherited land and money from mom and dad. All this to say it's not a real burden. A few years ago, I adopted my 45-year-old cousin Charlie's daughter, whom I'll call by her nickname Decker. My girl loves kickboxing. I adopted Decker after my cousin went to prison for murdering Decker's mother in a drunken and drugged rage. That's a story too long to add here. It was a chaotic year of grief paperwork and court hearings, but the adoption was finalized when Decker was 5. She's 13 now. She's happy and healthy and calls me mom. She's been in therapy since I was legally able to send her as she witnessed her mother's death, and I couldn't be prouder of how resilient she is. She's my girl, my rock star, my everything, and I literally call her my heart. Fast forward to my 30-year-old sister Clara's upcoming wedding. At first I was excited for her, and she asked me to be her maid of honor. I cried with joy and offered for my wife Han, who is 40, and yes, we like The Incredibles, haha, and me to pay for it. Don't worry, I asked Han first. But during a bachelorette dinner, I organized Clara made a hurtful comment about my daughter calling her a mistake and saying I shouldn't have taken her in. I looked at her and asked what she meant, and she said it's not like I should have children seeing as I'm married to a woman. She then added, no hate or anything, and laughed, but then insisted that Decker is probably damaged and problematic. Guys, Decker is the sweetest kid there is. Yes, she's a teenager, so she can be a bit rebellious at times, but when I say she's my everything, I mean it. She made us a family and turned our house into a home. She smiles easily, cries sincerely, and has emotional intelligence I wish I possessed. She always asks, how are you? And genuinely means it, willing to listen to others. But according to my sister, she's a damaged mistake. I felt like a character in a dark, twisted sci-fi episode. Defending my decision to adopt felt like fighting the Borg as if I simply couldn't be assimilated. I didn't laugh at her comment, not with her or her friends. I just stared at her in pure disbelief. I think she knew she had hurt me because she quickly changed the subject. I said it was better if I went home. I paid for everything and 3 more rounds and left with my family. The next day, my sister came to yell at me for leaving and cutting them off after the 3 rounds I paid for. She said I owed her a do-over for ruining the weekend because I can't take a joke. Han, whom I of course told everything that happened, asked my sister to repeat exactly what she said about our daughter. My sister refused and kept calling Decker Charlie's daughter. I was holding back so many tears. I told her I wasn't going to contribute a single cent to her wedding expenses, that I wouldn't stop helping her pay her rent until she moved in with her husband, but I wouldn't participate in or pay for the wedding of someone who saw my daughter as a mistake. Honestly, I was ready to cut all ties, but Han helped me rein myself in. My sister lost control, threw the can of sparkling water we gave her at me and screamed, how am I supposed to pay for this? And I said, you have over a year you can save. So I left, pushing Han out of the way and blowing up our family chat. My other siblings are divided. Some believe I overreacted by cutting off wedding funds, while others agree that my sister crossed a line and needed a wake-up call. Now I feel bad for my sister. I love her and she's distressed, but I can't get it out of my head that defending my daughter is more important. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for her wedding after that? I'm adding this in editing. I've been working on my work project at a local brewery and silently crying while reading the comments. Wow, so many comments. I tried to reply to everyone, but honestly, I ran out of energy. I sent this post to my wife, and I'm also preparing to talk to Decker tonight. We want to ask her if her aunt has said or done anything cruel to her or about her. I strongly hope she's just confused by our questions and remains oblivious to this mess. I love my heart. I want her to always remain the bright, funny, loving, and encouraging person she is. I don't want her to know anything her aunt said. I messaged my sister asking if she truly thinks that, if she truly sees me, my wife, and our daughter that way, or if she was just drunk and stupid. And then she insisted it was out of shame. That being said, I don't want her near Decker for the time being. I feel lost. I never planned on being a mother, and there's no effing manual for this. What the hell do I do? Wish me luck for tonight. I'll need it because if Decker tells us her aunt was cruel to her face, I'll have to hold my wife back from hitting my sister. Update 1. I'm trying to keep this brief. Han and I took Decker to the local Oktoberfest celebrations. She had a great time. She made crafts, danced to the music, had beer. It wasn't beer in a pint-sized glass, and generally enjoyed herself immensely. On the way back home, my wife brought up the topic we had been waiting for. We asked her how she felt about Grandma's passing, and then we talked about how everyone handles things differently. We asked her if Mom or Mommy Han had ever been hurtful, and she mentioned a couple of times we had been a bit tough or didn't let her do things like a 2 a.m. party, but nothing more. When we asked her about Clara, she went quiet. Han just looked at me, but I was driving, so I said, "You can tell us anything, my heart, you know that." And she shut down. We got home. I hugged Decker, and then I went to the living room. About 2 hours later, my wife came downstairs and told me Decker was in bed but not asleep, and that I should talk to her. I asked why, and she simply said Decker was ready to talk about it. I went upstairs. Decker was ready for bed in her pajamas reading. I sat on the side of the bed and asked her how she was. She just said, "Mom told you, didn't she?" I told her I didn't know anything, and Decker then told me that Clara made her feel uncomfortable and said hurtful things. When my wife and I weren't around, Clara called her a lost or stray puppy. And once Decker remembers her telling her to her face, "You're not real family," and that when Han and I have a real child, they would cast her aside. I can't explain the rage. The absolute total intense red I felt as my daughter cried, telling me that she behaves so well and is so obsessed with grades to prove that she deserves to be loved, that she deserves to be wanted. After calling my wife, we sat her down and told her she's the best thing that's ever happened to us, and that even if we have more children, she is our firstborn and our love. I cried and hugged her, telling her she's my everything and that nothing will change. That she saved us, and I'm so proud of her, of us, and of all that we've grown through. I will never stop loving her. Her mom doesn't either. We love her more than air. That will never change. Then I explained that her aunt was wrong. Auntie is jealous of her, jealous of how much we love her. Auntie needs help, but we can't give it to her, so she won't be around for a while. Decker asked us to stop talking about her like she was a child, so I was direct. She is my sister and I love her. You are my daughter, and I love you more. I told her my sister was wrong and cruel. I'm sorry she didn't feel she could come to Mom or me, but she can every time. We will always choose her. Decker asked me if it was her fault that I hated Clara, and I explained that hate is a choice, and that I don't hate Clara. I love her, but sometimes loving someone means correcting them. Actions have consequences. My daughter went quiet and handed me her phone. Clara had been sending her horrible messages since she left my house. I can't even type them out because I want to throw things. But one said something like, "Go tell your supposed mom like a tattletale and prove me right." I screenshotted it and sent it to myself. Decker fell asleep around midnight, and my wife and I went to sleep too. I sent the screenshot to my sister and told her, "You come into my home as my sister and treat my daughter like that? No. Mom and Dad would be ashamed of you. This is not how you treat a child, much less your niece. I've loved you for as long as I can remember. I know you weren't taught to treat children this way, but from now on you are not welcome in my home. You will not speak to or have contact with me, my wife, or my daughter. I will give you October's money, Clara, but November onwards is your responsibility. I am no longer going to help. I'm sorry. This breaks my heart, but you crossed a serious and unforgivable line. Decker is my daughter. I am her mother, don't doubt it. And I want to make it clear, if you ever mess with my family again or contact my daughter, I will take legal action. From today, we will maintain minimal contact. If you try to make this a bigger issue, it will be zero contact. If you don't understand, there are resources to clarify. I love you. Diane. Update 2. I kept my promise to my wife to wait before reacting. She knows me best and knew I was ready for an extreme reaction. Turns out it wasn't even necessary. Let me clarify a couple of small details and misconceptions I've read. I am the oldest sibling. Mom and Dad have been intermittently ill for years. So for those who think I've just started taking control out of some strange craving for power or something, no. I managed their finances, maintained their properties, and handled all their affairs before either of them passed away. Dad simply wasn't mentally capable after a while, and Mom never had a head for that kind of thing. Yes, I grew up mostly in charge of my siblings. Both parents owned businesses and often worked 7 days a week. I cooked dinner and helped with homework and all that. I know it's not very normal, and I know some of you will say my parents were terrible for this, but they simply didn't know any better. I don't hate them for any of this, and while it did cause some negative effects on me, it also made my siblings feel safe. I'm proud to have been able to protect them and be there for them when they were little so they wouldn't feel what I felt. And yes, I'm also in therapy. I was the sole caregiver for my parents when they passed away. The reasons are complicated, but in short, Dad became verbally abusive at the end, and Mom became severely depressed and very blunt. They were a challenge even on the best days. I don't hold a grudge, but it is what it is. My siblings didn't want to be around them. Dad felt hurt and changed his will. Mom did the same. For those who say I'm rewarding Clara by literally paying her this month or that, I'm not a real mother, or that I'm a bad mother for loving my daughter's tormentor, I envy that your world is so black and white. The rent is literally due today. The money was already on automatic transfer and Clara is not being rewarded. She's being kept housed, but from now on she's on her own. Clara and I used to be quite close, but she distanced herself around Decker's adoption. I didn't know exactly why, only that the new dynamic was a challenge for her. I know she hates Charlie and considers him evil and irredeemable. She had a very hard time losing our sister-in-law Decker's biological mother, with whom she was very close, so I assume her issues stem from there. I inherited most of everything, although my siblings received substantial sums. 3 received almost all of my parents' businesses, and everyone received trust funds. Clara fell apart after Mom's death and had a mental health crisis. Before we could help her, she traveled, drank, and spent all her inheritance gambling and having fun. Long story for another time. I didn't have a moment to calm down and wait until today to make a clear-headed decision regarding my sister. Clara has spun a story that I'm jealous she found a loving man and that I'm withholding Mom and Dad's money from her. She made it sound like I was the one abusing Decker, belittling her and telling her she wasn't my real daughter. That narrative fell apart when I sent my message a few days ago. Yesterday, Clara was at my door. She was crying and begging me to let her in, but my wife and her friends were inside, and I made it clear that I don't want her near my family as she emotionally abused my daughter. I told her to leave or I would call the police to have her removed. I was going to call the police anyway because I had already told her never to come back to our house, and there she was. There's a reason I said it via message to make it clear that she knows she's not welcome. Clara started pleading, saying she would apologize to Decker that she was drunk, upset, and made mistakes. I could tell she was drunk or high or something. I told her that intimidating a traumatized teenager and making her feel unloved and unwanted by her own family and sending her messages telling her she's useless and dispensable is not a simple mistake. What the hell? I got angry and started raising my voice. I don't know when I started yelling. I just lost control. She's a selfish, horrible, cold witch. My rage reached the point of being so delusional that she thought all this would just fix itself, that she's entitled to the money my wife and I earned that our parents gave us after all we did for them. She needs help and I'm done being the giving tree here. Never hurt my daughter again. She's lucky I have the presence of mind to keep my hands to myself, and even luckier that Han was nearby, because otherwise, well, I'd go to her house. Clara slapped me and called me a bitch and a traitor for choosing that demonic creature over her, that I love Decker more than my own family, and that I'm turning my back on her this way. Han must have been near the door because before I could make a huge mistake, she pulled me inside, told my sister she had 60 seconds to get lost, and slammed the door shut. Clara left quickly, but we still called the police and handed over the recordings from our security cameras as well as the messages from our phones. Clara went crazy via message, saying horrible things and ending with hoping I'd take my own life and that she would celebrate it. Absolutely deranged and despicable. I blocked her, saved all the material to a Google Drive, shared the link in the sibling group chat, and also sent it to Kevin, her fiancé. Update 3. Too tired to give the long explanation, so if you want the summary, it's on my account. I think I just desperately need to write this. About a month and a half ago, we cut off all contact with my entire maternal family, except for my other sister, not Clara. Decker has been in therapy, and frankly, Han and I have too, both individually and in bi-weekly couples therapy sessions, and a lot has changed. I didn't realize how much the abuse I suffered at the hands of my uncle affected me. For that reason, Clara's reaction to Decker never really bothered or affected my emotional or mental state much. My mother forced me to forgive him and be courteous when he was around. It was always like that. I was the eldest, so I always endured until I had no strength left, and then I endured again. I was never really allowed to have negative emotions or get angry. This situation with Clara stirred up a lot of old issues, and Han and I started having problems. She noticed how reserved I tend to be, and even with her, I struggle to ask for what I want or express my displeasure. I shut down or deflect. It's painful to learn this about yourself when your whole world is falling apart. Clara was arrested for assaulting me and ended up entering a month-long mental health program instead of receiving a conviction. As I understand it, her record is still clean from that. It was hard cutting off contact with her and the others. My other sister was the one keeping me updated mostly. Clara got out a while ago. She's been trying to reach out through every possible means. She got a new number, email, Facebook, and even TikTok. She's written and sent numerous letters. I'm exhausted because I hate cutting contact with everyone. It's so isolating always having my siblings around, and now suddenly only truly having one sister is very lonely. I'm focusing on Decker and Han. Han seems generally happier. She's dancing in the kitchen again. She's more affectionate with me and more enthusiastic about going out and doing things. And Decker is happier too. We focused less on her grades and praised her more for her sense of kindness, her perseverance, and more. She's more open with me in particular. She talks more about crushes and friends. Now she shares about the intricate life of a teenager. Haha, it's really quite sweet. I'm not doing so great, but my family is safe and happy. What else matters? Clara's fiancé Kevin contacted me 2 days ago. Clara has been released and has been out for about a week, but she still has to complete outpatient rehab. He says she's advised to have family and receive support, and he says she's not doing well. She started talking about self-harm and confessed to him that the same uncle who abused me also abused her. He's begging me to talk to her and help her. He keeps reminding me how she used to be before all this and how close we were. Calling our relationship close might be incorrect because from what I'm learning, our relationship was toxic from the start. I was an enabling sister to a manipulative and narcissistic sister. Sticking to my stance, I talked to Han, who agrees that I should keep contact, cut off, block Kevin, and simply rely on my other sister for information. But I can't help but feel guilty. I wish Clara the best, but I can't risk even slightly opening the door and jeopardizing my family's well-being. I think I just feel lonely. I know I can't have her in my life anymore. It just hurts. Sorry for the delay in the update. And to those who have been gentle or at least firm, but fair with me in my private messages, I thank you. There was never a manual on how to be a good wife or mother, and I've lived in existence feeling so lost. I really appreciate the support. Update 4. A lot has changed, but I don't have the capacity to go over everything, so I'll link my previous post here. Kevin and Clara are no longer together. She is now back in police custody with a new pending case, but this time for domestic violence. From what I understand, they argued, and at some point she grabbed a pipe or something, and witnesses called the police. Kevin tried to drop the charges and asked for money for a lawyer to do so, but eventually he just moved back to his hometown in another state. My daughter is happy as a clam, and I don't tell her these things unless she asks. According to her aunt, Clara is simply no longer welcome at home, and Han and I are happy to answer any questions. In fact, she hasn't asked about Clara in a couple of months. I miss my family, but I try not to focus on that too much. Toxic dynamics aren't easy to shake. I've maintained low to no contact with everyone except my other sister. This Easter, we'll spend it with Han's family. I like them very much, and I feel welcome with them, but for me it's still sad. I know that sounds selfish, and it is. I just wish life had been different, but at the end of the day, my daughter is my priority, and this keeps her safe and happy. We won't have her at home forever. She already talks about college and traveling. I love listening to her imagining and dreaming about the future. Now she simply has a spark in her, and it's beautiful. I want to spend as much time with her as possible before she conquers the world and forgets to check in with her weird mom. Haha. Update 5. This is kind of a follow-up to a post I made a few months ago after we moved to start over. Today is July 8th and it's raining here. Really crazy summer storms. Our garden is exploding with basil, okra, cherry tomatoes, and milkweed. And I wish this were a nice uplifting post, but it's more of a vent. A little context, my wife Han and I moved here with our 13-year-old daughter Decker after things got pretty difficult at our previous home. Family drama. Plus our daughter was bullied after her classmates found out she was adopted and had a crazy aunt. It's in my previous posts. I'm not going to repeat it. Either way, it's time for a new chapter. Han joined the board of a local nonprofit organization. I took a director position, and we moved into her late uncle's old house, a fixer-upper with a wild but beautiful edible garden. Then came Glenn, the neighbor, about 70 years old, who was close to the uncle. At first, he was great. He helped Decker in the garden. He even gave her advice on how to care for plants for butterflies. But when we started preparing to install a gate and cameras for security, he became cold. He accused us of treating him like a threat. We tried to explain that it wasn't about him, just about ensuring our daughter was safe. Now Glenn doesn't speak to any of us. He kicked Decker out of his garden and doesn't even look at her. She came in holding back tears, and honestly, I'm tired of older adults being cruel to children who just want to feel safe and happy. We moved seeking peace. I want to be a good neighbor, but it seems people either don't understand or take it personally when you try to set boundaries. I miss my own family even though we're estranged. And even though Han's family is incredible, I still feel like an outsider. Sometimes they are close in a way I never really had, and it's hard not to feel a little lonely. Anyway, any advice, stories, suggestions for handling this kind of cold, weird neighbor dynamic, especially when you're just trying to keep your daughter safe? I appreciate you all.